So now more than ever, especially with the rise of like influencers and internet celebrities and whatnot, now more than ever we've been glorifying our 20s, right? And no specific age during our 20s is more glorified than the golden age of 21, right? Like it's come to a point where and it's ironic because I was literally just talking to my dad about this the other day. The internet has convinced us that if we do not have our shit figured out by 21, then we're cooked, and that's just the way things are gonna be for the rest of our lives. When no, like you're supposed to not have it all figured out right now. That's okay. So there's a few reasons I'm making this video, right? First reason, I'm gonna turn 23 in like less than a week. I'm gonna turn 23 in less than a week. And thinking about that, for a split second, I thought about it for too long, and this little voice started creeping in my head of ageism, because like that's what it's all about. It's all about ageism. Gen Z is notoriously obsessed with ageism, and like I said before, a lot of that is because of all these like internet stars and shit, like making you think you have to have it all figured out right now, or you're cooked. But that really isn't the way it goes. But no, I'm gonna be 23, and I started doubting myself for a split second because I was like, "Oh man, like I haven't I haven't improved enough. I still don't have it all figured out yet. I still don't have my money's not where I want it to be yet. My social life is not where I want to be yet. Artistically as a creative, I'm not where I want to be yet." And that's where exactly you're supposed to be, unironically. But the problem with that is that for a second, I actually convinced myself that I was getting like old, like not just older. Obviously, I'm getting older. It's gonna be, I'll have turned another year old. But like, I convinced myself for a split second that 23 was old. Like I convinced myself that like that was I convinced myself that anything beyond 21 and you still didn't have something set in your life. You still didn't have like almost everything you want going for you is a complete failure when it actually isn't. Because I've met people in their late 20s, I've met people in their 30s especially, and 30s guys, like I think that's millennials. Like even millennials have the same thing too, where it's like, everyone thinks they're past their prime these days when they're really not. I feel like because you hear like internet words all the time, like unk and old head, stupid shit like that. Which, first of all, stay off the internet. I feel like that's just a general good piece of advice overall. Just stay off the internet, man, because like that'll constantly being plugged up and plugged in will screw with your perception of reality, especially if you're like me and you don't like besides work, you don't like go out too crazy often. Going on the internet like more often than not will because the internet's not. If I'm gonna go on a tangent, the internet's not nearly as like fun or interesting as it used to be. It used to be all about like just fucking like stupid ass like videos like YouTube poops and shit. But now it's like everything is it feels like it's made for the sole purpose of trying to diminish you and erode you in a way. And at the very least, that's what social media is trying to do because, like, if you do that, then you keep watching. And if you keep watching, that's more money for them. But I know I digress. But there's no expiration date until the day you die. I think that's the best piece of advice I can give you today. There's no expiration date until the day you die. Don't let anybody try to convince you that, you're too old for this, you're too old for that, you're too old to like go back to school, go back to college, you're too old to try new things. No, you're not. If you can physically pick yourself up in the morning and get out of bed and take care of yourself and whatnot, then you are just young enough to do absolutely anything that you want in this world. And that's the sad part because when I was 21, I wasn't really doing anything. I mean, Like, up until, like, recently, I wanna say up until, like, a few months ago and even today, like, I'm an adult, but mentally, I'm still a teenager, you know? Like, I was still do like, a couple of years ago, like, I was still doing the same shit that I was as a teenager, you know? Just, like, getting, getting stoned and just playing video games all day, man, but it's like, you get a it shouldn't be too crazy a sense of urgency unless your situation is that bad. But, you definitely get some form of a wake-up call after 21, because I feel like during the ages of, like, 18 through, like, 21, for me, it was 18 through 22. It's like, okay, I'm young, I still have time to just, be an idiot, do stupid shit. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with being an idiot and doing stupid shit every now and then. I mean, like, you're if you're a young adult, you're gonna make mistakes, that's what it's all about. But no, back to the conversation I was having with my dad the other day. He was like, he literally said the same thing I just told you. Like our generation, Gen Z, is so constantly plugged up on the internet that like the less than 1% of young people that are successful right now, let's say, no, you got like Speed, Kai Cenat, like, there's more, but, like, most of those guys are assholes. I mean, like, out of all the out of all, like, the streamer, like, people like, Rakai, Kai Cenat, Speed, like, Speed is the only one that actually seems like a decent dude, but that's kinda it, you know? And that's another thing too. If you get too successful too early, you don't really appreciate all that success and all that money, and it kinda warps your heart after a while, It kinda, like, fucks with your perception of reality. Another reason we always think about our age a lot too is because, well, like, and I've said this in literally all of my other videos. The way the economy is completely fucked up. Uh, like people like boomers back in the day were doing shit at like 21, 20, like early 20s that we in this generation are doing like in our mid to late 30s, if at all, right? Like guys back then in their 20s were, they were buying houses, they were getting a full salary to help, pay for their family, pay for a house, pay for a car, pay for food, this, that, and the third. And hell, if you're a cheating piece of shit, you can pay for two families too. So like they were going off back in the day, man. Like they were cranking 90s back in the day. But you could do so much in your early 20s that like comparatively to what we can do in our early 20s today, it still makes us feel like children almost. It still makes us feel like, yeah, sure, you're an adult, sure, but there's still so much that's like out of our hands. You know what I mean? And I know I've said this too, but it is not entirely your fault for the situation that you're in. That's just how it is. It is not your fault that your boss isn't paying you the money that you deserve or the money that you've earned day in and day out. It's not your fault that a house costs an arm and a leg. A house, all a house is a place for me to rest my head once I'm done going to work. There's no reason a house should be that expensive. There really isn't. But like I said before, that's what guys did back in the day. They could buy a house, they could buy multiple houses, and that's the reason why we can't buy them today, because all the boomers, they already own everything. So now we got to rent it out from them. But yeah, that's another thing about Gen Z. We don't own anything. We own absolutely nothing. We don't own the music we listen to. We don't own the TV shows we watch. We don't own the books we read. We don't own the video games we play. We don't own the places we live in. Shit, I is a fucking rented out apartment. I'm kicking it in right now. I don't own this place. Fuck no. We own absolutely nothing, and it's sad the way it works. If we're gonna go back to me turning 23 in like less than a week, I I don't know. I think the reason that that it threw me off so bad is that time flies, right? Time flies. I remember when I was talking to my cousin a while back, he was telling me about how he was telling me about how fast time goes by, man. Cause like he was telling me like so this was like a year ago. So we were talking, and like we were talking about just like generally just finding joy in life and the balance of enjoying life versus proceeding in life and how you should balance both of those because there needs to be a good balance between both. But he was telling me at that point in my life, I was like very early 22. So it's like he was telling me which period of your life went by faster, Nathan? The 4 years you spent in high school or the 4 years you spent as an adult so far? And I thought about it. I was like, holy shit, he's right. The past 4 years I've been spending as an adult went by like that. It went by it was crazy how fast it went by. Like high school, like like it like I don't I and it's funny because I was this whole video is just me telling you guys about conversations I've had, but I was talking to somebody else too, and hey Thomas, can you not Thomas? The train engine, the train is back. I'm not schizophrenic. So I was talking to what was I talking about? I don't know. But yeah, the 4 years I spent as a grown man went by so much faster than the 4 years I spent in high school. And I'm not one of those like weird guys that like keep thinking about high school after you graduate. Like, yeah, there will be times where like I'll like think about like a moment or two or like a couple of friends I made and like smile a little bit to myself like an insane person. But it's like I don't you can't live in the past, man. Like you can't you can learn from it for sure, but you can't live in the past. But no, the in hindsight, the time I spent in high school physically felt like 5 to 6 years rather than four. But the time I spent as an adult up until now, which has almost been like what 5 years, feels like two or three. So your 20s go by fast, man. Your 20s go by fast. So I know with your 20s go by fast. With that being said, you see a lot of YouTube videos about oh, how to prioritize your 20s. You gotta make sure to you gotta put all your money in a savings bond. You gotta make sure to invest. No, don't don't throw your money. And, my channel's no different from that. Like you're gonna see videos like that on my channel too. But it's like it's all a balance. Like you gotta balance having fun with improving. And if you're lucky enough, there's no difference between the two. But yeah, your life isn't over at 21. Your life is just starting at 21, as a matter of fact. You're literally just beginning. So, th- literally don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. But nah, that's it. This is a stranger signing out. That's such a dumb, that's so dumb. That's so. This is a stranger signing out.